Beginning with the very opening passage of Saeta, we have something to say. Carter notates this bouncing ball accelerando beginning with a half note. So if we begin with a half note at approximately a quarter note equals 75, the metric tempo that follows, we can give that first bounce its due time. After that, we accelerate at some exponential curve, that is, the temporal distance between each successive note decreases at a greater and greater pace, like a dropped ping-pong ball. Note also, the counted meter begins at the end of the first line. The opposite of the first line accelerando is the third line decelerando. But this one does not end with a half note the way the accelerando began. Rather, it goes straight into the 8th equals 150 tempo. So as you are decelerating and getting softer, you begin the next metric section as soon as you reach that speed, 8th equals 150. Further note, that measure of decelerando should take up the time of 1/6/8 measure at dotted quarter equals 50. Now we come to the issue of whether to play the A both in the normal and center beating spots simultaneously. By studying the manuscript, we can see that Carter has eliminated the staccato marks and whited out part of the down stem, even inserting a little eighth note rest over that stem, clearly indicating that he does not expect it to be played in the center. But, given the center-sounding regular eighth note ostinato of the rest of the passage, and the fact that you can play them both without significantly affecting the other, I like it played simultaneously, and therefore I do it. Later on, there appears to be an analogous situation, but here the normal A's and D's are getting louder and louder, while the center notes stay piano. So the center would eventually be covered if played at the same time. Plus, there are technical concerns in executing the 16th note piano center strokes while skipping the distance of a drum. So here I do not do it. I stress that I do not claim my interpretation to be the right interpretation, just my interpretation. This slide represents an issue that pops up fairly frequently in these pieces. Carter transforms what is a traditionally monophonic instrument, the timpani, into a polyphonic instrument, an instrument that plays more than one musical line at a time. Think of the piano that routinely plays a melody in one hand and the accompaniment in the other. In the present case, one line is a soft ostinato rhythm, and the other comprises loud syncopated interventions. Both hands are used to play parts of both lines. The trap into which many students fall is to succumb to a tendency to increase the level of the soft ostinato when the loud notes are played. You must make a conscious effort to resist this tendency in order to maintain the two distinct polyphonic lines. Here we have a similar construct with two contrasting lines. This time, one of the lines is to be slightly emphasized. That emphasized line then grows and becomes the pivot rhythm for the next metric modulation. The problem here resides in the interpretation of the word slightly. If too subtle, the second line becomes indiscernible to the audience, and the whole point of the section is lost. I would rather err on the side of a little more than too little for the slightly emphasized notes. Of course, maintaining very even, soft, fast notes moving quickly between drums in the ostinato line here is no easy job and needs to be carefully prepared as well. When Carter reissued this set in 1995, he added some dynamic markings that were not in the autograph manuscript nor in the 1967 edition, which, by the way, is the version that I used for my DVD performance. It is not clear to me why the markings were left out of the analogous sections of the recapitulation. I recommend adding them in the appropriate places.